Little Lugan tugged on Matthias's tunic.
"What happened to father?"
he asked innocently. Matthias's heart clenched. It had to be done. It had to be. Matthias shook. Pain and guilt pushed down. He needed to be strong for Lugan. Succeed where the little boy's father had failed. But was it too late? He would march the next day, out into the battlefield. No time to grieve a brother's death when the people died about him. But today was the funeral, and the church would name him regent till Lugan was 16. The line of horses stomped through the dry summer days. Clouds of dust billowed behind them. Steel javelins rested in the oversized quiver on Matthias's back. He wasn't as skilled as either of his brothers in the blade, but he was the master of the family weapon. Still at his hip rested a longsword. Plate clattered. Men scoffed. Horses nickered. Matthias kept his mind blank, clear of thought and worry, sharpened to the edge that only art had brought him before. Then the fight came. Hooves thundered amongst raining arrows. Horns howled and men screamed. Rank on rank of horsemen slammed into screaming skirmishers and hunted down scouts. None were to escape. Tandem took no prisoners, least not these heathens, these unwashed, foul-mouthed cretins. A crooked grin stretched across Matthias's face as he saw the barbarians die by the score. Matthias had found the Northmen's camp, constructed in the base of a valley in the vast woods. It was well hidden, but terribly defended. A captured Northman had easily given its location before Matthias skewered him on a spike. The reports of the thrice chained being spotted in the camp gave him hope. If he and his best men faced the monster, surely they would be rid of him. Plates clicked as his fingers strummed his knee. The horses had to be discarded in the woods. The sun peeked through the trees at their backs. Everything was in place. Why did he feel unnerved? Why didn't he feel the thrill of the up-and-coming slaughter? Shouts and bright orange flames jumped from the darkness. He ran shouting to his men, pulling his longsword from the scabbard, and shoving his helmet onto his damp hair. Men gathered around him and fought forward. Screams rose as blood fell. He burst through a horde of Northmen, their cowardly nature breaking them on steel. A man stood a mere 10 paces from Matthias. He was short and built like a bull. A crooked grin stretched across his face, and 3 sets of black chains wrapped around his biceps. A frenzy was alight in his eyes. The short man bullied through his guards, tossing them like toys. His axe hewed through men's legs and chests like butter. Gore washed in his wake. Suddenly the cowardice of the other Northmen vanished, and they fought with a dangerous fervor, taking blow for blows, killing themselves in a blood frenzy. The short man took wound after wound. Blood drenched his chest and arms, yet he never slowed. Matthias met the thrice-chained, meeting axe with sword. They traded a fury of blows. Matthias struck flesh again and again. It felt like he was hitting steel. The axe finally bit flesh. Matthias fell into his men's arms as his leg toppled to the ground. Holding the wound, his men dragged him away, one taking a curved sword through the chest as they fled. More men-at-arms moved in the way of the barbarians, and the short men howled in unsated bloodlust. Delirious, Matthias saw a woman in red dancing in the sky. Long, thick hair, black as night, tumbled down her back. What was she doing here? Matthias's eyes clenched shut as his men died around him. When they opened, she was gone. Shortly afterwards, Matthias was gone, as the thrice-chained sunk his axe into Matthias's chest. Episode 18, Varder's Revelry. Guinevere and Raphael both found Visenya practicing with her sword as they left the castle. Curious, Raphael requested a spar, much to Octavius's obvious jealousy. The High Lady left him to duel Raphael. Raphael is felled in the moment he enters Visenya's impressive reach. Guinevere asked for a follow-up spar, and fares far better. She bullied her way in to land some hits, but none of significant force compared to the beating she received in return. While Guinevere fought, Raphael noticed a guard walking awkwardly away. He slipped after the guard.
Her eyes seem to move again,
said Guinevere.
Perhaps we were seeing things. What do you think, Raphael? Raphael?
Said Melara.
A ghost attacked me last night,
Medea complained to Fenrir. Elidas, after noting that the woman was fine enough to use the incident to receive comforting from Fenrir, left the stray fox. The others would be fine. They would, wouldn't they? Elidas was relieved to find Raphael unharmed leaving the castle, though it was strange for the old man to be tailing a guard so stealthily. Elidas joined him.
You recognize God?
Elidas whispered to Raphael.
No, he's just acting strangely.
The guard went straight to the church, nervously looking behind him. Within, he talked with the bishop.
I'm sure of it, your grace. They were muttering of demons and treachery. They are witches, your grace. Who, child? The Thuluzu merchant Medea, and a stranger with red hair and freckles. I think the High Lady called her Guinevere. We'll take this into account. Fear not, my good man. We will purify this corruption from the city.
That's no good. Elidas warned Medea. I shall warn Guinevere, whispered Raphael. The first full moon of true winter was upon them, and with it was Varder's party.
I'm sorry, Fenrir, but my discovery has my sisters worried. I can't leave them, said Medea. I would have loved to come with you.
Fenrir nodded understandingly and gave her a kiss before leaving for his fight with Ular. It was a long trek through trodden snow to reach the warmth of the bonfire. The beat of drums and the cheer of voices quickened the blood. A pair of warriors clashed in naught but loincloths as the others danced wildly about the fire. Drink sloshed from horns and tankards. Given his new companions, Fenrir offered to introduce them to Varder. Raphael paled at the face of the man, declining. Guinevere found Varder strangely familiar, the 3 scars on his chest. This is Guinevere, said Fenrir. Varder's eyes widened.
Guinevere.
The short man stood and grasped her arm. He pulled her into the shadows. Huh, didn't think she was his type, Fenrir thought.
Where Guinevere?
Asked Elidas, as Fenrir returned to the others. They seemed more skittish than usual. Having some fun with Varder, I suspect, said Fenrir. And you just let him take her? Accused Raphael. Fenrir shrugged. She not displeased? More curious. A few minutes later, Guinevere returned.
I don't think we should help Damascus kill my father,
Oh, this is a headache, said Fenrir.
Varder's your father?
Gasped Melara. Guinevere nodded.
We should be killing Damascus instead. It's what I wanted to do from the start anyway.
Melara, Elidas, and Raphael glanced up at Varder. Their faces blanched. Right. Help him, Elidas pointed. Absolutely not, said Raphael. Damascus is a watchman, a general of the ministry. Killing one isn't only treachery, it's nearly impossible.
So you're going to help him kill my father?
Growled Guinevere. Fenrir threw up his hands. I leave this to you lot. He turned and walked away. No, said Elidas. Then he looked up at the short man. Then away. I mean, yes.
It doesn't seem like we have much of a choice in the matter, Guinevere.
Melara's head snapped, looking over her shoulder at nothing.
You traitors,
muttered Guinevere as she stomped back to Varder's side. Ever get around to looking for that murderer? Asked Ular. No, said Fenrir. Shame. Bitch has gotten 2 more. Turns out she's a witch. Narrows the search nicely, eh? We caught her in the act, but she had a thick, raggedy cloak on and used magic to escape. Good to know. Their duel began. Fenrir darted forward and slammed his axe down. Urlar crumpled like a dry leaf. Varder bellowed with laughter. Good show, boy! Oh, where's my sister? She is safe, and may leave with you if you wish. Meet me tomorrow at the castle, and I shall bring you to her. Fenrir accepted. The party continued. Booze were drunk, fights were fought, and great revelry was had. Then, as the massive moon reached its zenith, from the shadows came a tall man with candles on his head. His cloak seemed to be made of wind, and it was hard to see whether or not he had limbs beneath it. He collided before Varder and spoke. City champion. Watchman. Tell me, how does a man such as yourself achieve such an honorable position? My achievements. Achievements in butchery? Among other things. The watchman snorted. Achievements in servitude? In slavery? A line appeared down Varder's arm, cutting the wrapping around his bicep away to reveal 3 rings of black chains, tattooed on the shorter man's arm. Blood rushed forth from the wound. Slaves like you aren't tolerated in tandem. Varder bellowed. The men pulled themselves from women and dove for weapons. Varder slammed down his massive axe. Damascus stepped away with ease. Bloody cuts simply seemed to appear on Varder. No action seemed needed for Damascus to strike. Sean and Quad came from the dark and ran to support their general. Guinevere defended her father by striking Sean, but the cut was shallow. The blond man responded with a wink. We spared you, witch, for your agreement to aid in the slaughter of this heathen. Yet now you betray that trust? Burning witch, Damascus seethed. You prevented my true birth. I'll have your head, Guinevere responded. Damascus sneered. I saved you from the loss of your humanity. Urlar slit a woman's throat to heal with his vial, only for Elidas to kill him with a volley of javelins. Guards swarmed from the shadows as Northmen closed on the squires. Revelers screamed and fled. A blood bolt struck one and she died. Writhing tentacles of flesh and blood burst forth from the corpse, striking at Damascus. The watchman casually dodged out of the way. Another long cut formed over Varder's cheek. Fenrir settled near the bonfire. He threw some dried seeds his people had traded for from a distant land into a covered pan and stuck it close to the fire. The seeds popped. Blades flashed, and a furious melee was centered about the watchman and the thrice chained. A Northman woman reached out a hand. Elidas felt a sharp pain and a tug on something within him. Vibrant blue light was retched from his orifices as his soul was stolen violently from his body. Sighing, Fenrir stood and asked the shaman to release Elidas' soul. Now dead, she promptly did. Raphael crouched over the Eastman, feeding Elidas his vial. Come on, big man. Show them what you're made of. Elidas' eyes snapped open, and he leapt to his feet and threw in one great motion. The javelin slammed into Varder's jaw, nearly taking the thing off. Varder bellowed and turned hate-filled eyes to Elidas. Elidas hid behind a tree. Varder made a move to leave the melee, but the ministry men had him in a lockdown. Enraged, he swung a mighty cleave, separating Sean's torso from his legs. The axe sank into Quar's side, and the tall man stumbled back and decided to hunt smaller prey. The unknown entity lurked in the shadow beyond the widow. Blood bolts, massive blades, and bloody tentacles came from the unknown witch. All fought for Varder. Curious, Fenrir strove into the shadows with a torch, unveiling a large woman behind the tree. Upon her discovery, she fled into the dark. Melara took a devastating arrow shot to the shoulder. Varder finally hit Damascus. The man's arm was struck by only the haft, but it still broke. Quar's flesh was flayed as Guinevere shredded him with blood bolts. Feeling the battle slowly slipping out of his control, Damascus began fighting defensively. Blow after blow, frenzied swings went wide again and again. Varder's growing rage was never satisfied. Dark behind the tree tripped Elidas' feet, and the atlatl he held was caught in between his legs as he tripped, snapping. Behind! Raphael called to Damascus, and the watchman slipped behind Varder, hamstringing him in one clean move. Raphael then ducked down to heal Melara, enough for her to rise and strike a shield-bearing barbarian brutally, only for the man to return the favor. Varder unleashed a fury of blows, his body straining as he pushed himself. Thick bone plating that underlined his skin bloodily broke free. Damascus manages to dodge out of the way of every blow, but he is left off balance and with little attention. Guinevere exploited this. The first blood bolt tore through his leg, causing the man to fall. His eyes widened as he fell towards her. The next bolt rammed down his throat, blowing his guts out of his stomach. Libar is killed by the last bolt, despite his cover in the dark of the woods. The last of the Northmen falls to the few remaining Tendemian guards, only for those guards to fall in turn to Guinevere's blood magic. Nightmarish visions shroud Varder in the eyes of Elidas, Melara, and Raphael.
Melara, my dear,
her mother whispered in her ears.
Don't you want to free your dear friend Guinevere? Free her like you freed yourself?
Get this over with, Elidas, said Raphael. Elidas obliged. Javelin sprouted from Varder's chest, shattering the thick bone plating. Varder's breaths heaved and he stumbled forward on his one good leg.
What are you doing?
Guinevere screamed. A wolf burst forth from the night, leaping off of the obelisk towards Varder's back. The man whirled. Charlotte did as she always does. Varder bashed the dog away with his fist, sending the wolf flying. He continued to stumble forward as his blood left him from his throat in great gushes. Then he fell. His body shook as he clawed forward, then died.